Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to FinStep Asia, Token Bytes into Decoded. This is a mix of the two in some senses, but broadly the FinStep Asia podcast. We said Musheer Ahmed, your host. I was going to say that as a really used to us to your host and podcast. You're good. I'm with a great friend and a fellow London Business School alumni, Ronald Ng, who's an entrepreneur in the space of artificial intelligence and telecom. Ronald's had a distinguished career in telco and IT, and he is right now in the weeds of artificial intelligence activity, as it were, not quite the style of what Anthropic had to do with the certain governments, but we're talking about actually working on a bunch of code, working on models, and deploying AI agents when you're away. So, Ronald, welcome. How are you doing?
Good.
For my audience sake, would love to hear a little bit of a background about your career, how you got into IT, and you're also originally from Australia as well, and you've been in Hong Kong for quite some time. Would love to do some context.
Yeah, sure. So Ronald, I started my life as a computer engineer in IBM in Australia.
Yeah.
So I went through, I guess, the bottom ranks for strategic outsourcing.
Sure.
And then I moved to the UK with IBM. Did a lot of banking clients there. Looked at, I guess, a lot of contracts based on outsourcing infrastructure. And then came back to Hong Kong, also with IBM. So I spent multiple continents with them, including US for a little bit.
Okay.
And then did a little stint at Telecom, Austria.
Yeah.
And started my, I guess, entrepreneurship life. After that, did 4 startups. One is a genomics startup, so helping the elderly with technology, crypto, education, and now my own AI consulting.
That's great, and I love you. You're the international businessman, right? For the international business machines, as it were, with IBM. Now, you've seen that journey where being a computer science graduate all the way out of the way. And on those days, IT, as you said, outsourcing, whatever it was a lot of just tech issues being fixed remotely to a certain extent. And it was largely enterprise or somebody calling up because they didn't know how to operate the Windows and they didn't know how to restart.
Yeah, but that's a bug, really.
Right? We the retail user or an enterprise user. In short, that's like, I don't know how to run this software. Right?
Yeah.
But you also built stuff.
Yeah,
and you also looked at the terms. So if you had to speak about what's changed over the last 2 decades, what are the things that you've seen as a significant switch before we go into the AI? So let's say what has led us to the doorstep of Gen AI and Agentic AI.
Right.
If you had to build it up over the last 2 decades, what do you say? How has it come about?
I would have said that we focused a lot of just building stuff, right? And I'm not saying that all the building stuff isn't important. I think just the focus really changed, right? So, I mean, the real highlight is, we went from like big, massive computers to like 2 nanometer technology. That is important.
Correct.
But in that sense, that also attributed to where we are now.
Yeah.
Because we can now carry this mainframe like in our pockets.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. But we've had a long journey to get there. And from my perspective is, we worried about, the cabling, where the computer, where we put it to, well, we've got this thing called the internet now. Everybody's connected. Like 20 years ago, it was getting there, but it wasn't really available.
Sure.
So I think the accessibility is the key part that changed. You can access technology, you can access outcomes a lot better. And even for me, the real keyword that Steve Jobs put it is, the technology is the magic. So making the magic more accessible. Right. You go back to some of these analogies as, you don't understand it, it looks like magic, but if you can understand where it comes from, you understand the technology and able to use it, that's just technology. That's not magic.
Fair.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting you say that, the magic piece of it. And looking back to this age, when we were growing up, a lot of the movies would have, the sci-fi movies as well. some of them are way
way out there.
right? The Jetsons, possible in 10 years' time, right? One of my favorite movies is getting the name is essentially where the humans are super downsized in nature and
Oh yeah,
they were exploring the human body.
Right.
And that's a 70s movie actually. But what I'm coming to is, but there are also a lot of the movies where we saw artificial intelligence in particular,
Yeah.
the expectations of what it will be, and I was almost, I think it's one of the things there. It's like, it's finally happened, right?
Mhm.
As much as like, oh my god, what is happening? There
Yeah.
is you have that as well. It's something with excitement, sometimes also trepidation about, wow, where will this lead to?
Yeah.
But a lot of it, I feel, has been anticipation building up,
Yeah.
especially the robotics and artificial intelligence. Like, this will happen, right?
Yeah.
Do the sentient. We talk about Robin Williams and you go back to
Yes.
Sentient Man and a bunch of others that we've seen where be it software, be it hardware as such taking over. You're there now.
Where I think my analogy is sort of we're getting there.
Okay.
I mean, the movies really set the vision, right?
Correct.
In a way,
Yeah.
right? We used to have these, cars that drive themselves, but now it's kind of there. We would have, I guess, these robots.
Yeah.
That's helping out carry stuff.
Correct.
And it's well, it's kind of there. It's not.
Yeah.
Right? They can't make you an omelet right now, right? There's some issues with that. As a generic robot, right? Not one design specific.
And I want to go down that path.
That's right. Yeah, we can get a coffee, I guess. So I think the way that it's going is we have like the way I explain it to people is you have a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Right. And there are models, there are brains, literally we're now calling it brains, right? It's not really a brain thing, but we're trying to anthropomorphize these things. But it's not. It's a tool, right? It's a tool that helps us to do things. That's the context we need to have.
Sure.
And then in there is this tool that has a brain, but it has no idea. You just switched it on.
Sure.
So you need to give it context. You need to give objectives. They need to understand what you want.
Yeah.
They need to understand what your outcome is, and that's not where we are from the movies, right? The movies go, well, here it happens, right? But as you and I know, movies and things, right, get cut in. There are shortcuts to tell the story.
Yeah.
And that's fantastical. But in reality, it's actually you need to spend a lot of time setting it up. You need to tune it. You need to talk about it. And when things go wrong, and it always goes wrong. But in movies, when do things go wrong? Well,
some comes in,
and then some sort of laugh sketch, right? That scene was very funny, or it creates a disaster.
Yeah.
Right? There's a plot to it, but there isn't a plot to most disasters in real life. It's just happens, right? And so that's where we need braces. We need to go fix it. We need to retune it.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes it needs a new brain, right? Which can happen now. It's like, oh, well, these things cost too much money, so I'm going to do something cheaper and get more errors. Yeah. So maybe I'm going to put the brain back in or try another brain. So that's the sort of thing that's, different these days. We're literally saying what we want from this entity, whether it's a human or AI these days. Your knowledge is one part. You can dump it in or you can't.
Yeah.
Your brain is one part.
Yeah.
And the capabilities or tools, be it in the digital land,
sure,
like in the matrix, or in reality, then those are the things that we've now separate out and try to figure out, well, how do we work as a society when we separate these things? What is acceptable?
Yeah.
Right? And where are the guardrails, like what they can do, what they can't do, that sort of thing. So I think that is real question in 2026 is, wow, these things are now pretty capable.
Yeah.
Is this the moment where we need some definition around this?
Yeah. Again, I was just going to build on that. You rightly pointed out about when you think of artificial intelligence, a lot of times the expectation is that it is replicating a human intelligence in all is possible. And our strongest muscle as where what controls everything we do, and that's what makes us human to a large extent. Like the difference in genetics between human and an ape or a chimpanzee is 1 or 2% genetic perspective. It's not a difference, very little difference. But what we can do is what human ape can do is very, very different. And that's like another inflection point or reaching there. And and when you think about it, our expectation going about a stock market was a lot about everything, every machine is going to be able to, it's a robot, which is human. The humanoid story, right? And can do everything as a human could, which we probably will get to some extent, but in my mind, in two ways to almost break down artificial intelligence, the pre-Gen AI era and post-Gen AI era. The pre-Gen AI era already had a lot of smart algorithms and AIs as they are built based on smart algorithms and coding, which were very good at executing a bunch of things. Like you mentioned about the coffee, right? So robotic coffee makers or robo baristas are fairly here and there. You have coffee shops here in Shenzhen, in Hong Kong. In Shenzhen, last year May, the Beyond Expo in Shenzhen, they had this amazing setup, right, where they give you a coffee and it takes a photograph, makes a print of that coffee, great stuff. But it's just, this is more of here's your here's your task, you have to execute and it's doing that.
Yeah.
That's all there is. Just more algorithms than it was AI.
Yeah.
But now you're moving to a stage where it's independently doing well, and I feel I used the analogy recently where I said AI's models to a large extent are very similar to say chess prodigy. He's really good at chess. Maybe 10, 11, she may be Judith Polgaris, we look at FinStep and stuff, can be excellent and beat 99.9999% chess. But put the same prodigy to drive a Formula One car. 1 in 100 maybe of those prodigies may be able to also drive a Formula One car. Then ask them at the decent pace, not at the best, right? Ask them to then go do something as play a sport, for example, like a physical sport. Not like, but there are humans who, and that's where the AI comes in. That's right, but they are really good at that level.
Yeah.
And depending on capability and power that you allow, the model strength, right? The amount of parameters, all of the stuff that comes in, they could be a prodigy at the city level, at the province level, at the country level, at the global level, right? And that's how I kind of feel where AI is right now.
Yeah.
And bringing in them to be an all-encompassing the AGI conversation, I'm not sure that's have any thoughts on this?
I think I agree with Andrew there in terms of AGI still. No, definitely no relation. I wish, but no.
Yeah.
But his point, I think, last couple of days, was that AGI is still quite far away.
Yeah.
Because going back to that accessibility piece, right?
Sure.
We used to do like chips and computers and mainframe servers, and now we've got mobile phones, cloud systems, and everything.
Yeah.
But where is AGI on that trend? Right. It's super accessible. Like it's almost the end of that journey. How many milestones do we need to hit to get there? I think his point was actually it's still quite a few. Right. We want to be there. I guess the vision is there. But I agree with him. I think there's still quite a few revolutions away from getting to an AGI. And we can still argue, even the experts argue what the hell is AGI, right? Some people define it differently and some people find it very, like nirvana, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of, we're creating people. That's a little fantastical, but it's good to have a goal, I would say, right? And getting to the point about, I think, where the coffee machine and everything is. Like even today, I did ask you about preparation today, right? And so I went to the AI, right? And I did ask them. So the thing that I saw with the technologies right now is that actually they do a lot of coding in the back.
Yeah.
You may see like the main thing talk to you, But in the back, it's talking to other AIs going, like, oh, I want to grab this from Google. Oh, I want to, and it's all coding. So in essence, if you can get everything in coding space, then it's really easy for them to manipulate.
Sure.
But when you're talking about things like judgment,
Yeah.
right? Oh, do I want to turn this curve, like make this turn earlier when I'm going at 100 or whatever miles per hour? Do I do this now or do I brake? Like this judgment piece is actually quite critical, and I think that's what's separating us from where we want to be. And if we need AGI to be here, it needs to have judgment, right? So that's where I think, from Dr. Wickham and, that actually will serve it. That needs to be there, right, in sort of where AGI needs to be. So I agree. I think there's still a few milestones. We haven't seen judgment yet, right?
Yeah.
We may have seen, I guess, limitations of it.
I agree. Yeah.
But judgment is not something that we've got right now.
And that's a beautiful well put. I'm going to use an analogy of my life as a trader, as a trader, and it's two things there. One is when we used to trade, my chairman used to say, a lot of your trading, best decisions are in your gut feel.
Mm-hmm.
And develop that gut feel. And that's a very human thing.
Yeah.
It's like gut feel. I have a gut feeling about this. That's a subconscious.
Yeah.
But it is learned experiences based on whatever you observe subconsciously and consciously, which you cannot explain, right? It's a bit like explainability in AI is a massive story for governance, for guardrails, etc., for regulations. But that gut feel and that intuition combines with that judgment to make us human, and then AI to reach there is what will probably be AGI, right?
Yes. I think when we see that, we'll be like, oh, okay, well, hang on a second.
Because the gut feel and the gut feel coming true, right?
Yes.
And it's like, okay, man, then I got this feeling and I'm there, right? Because the other part of the invitation is now that's the example I want to give is there's a lot made of in the recent past about copy trading, which is here's a trader, especially in the blockchain world, where you have an access to, say, on the poly market and others, and general crypto and decentralized exchanges, where you can see what a trader's done, right? Where they entered, where they exited, and say, hey, you're gonna copy that person. That used to be the case for us. I used to have, I'm having a group of 30 traders, 35 traders in my team. Some of them are experienced, some of them are new. The new ones are sitting and watching what the other one is doing. But we used to always tell the new kids, like, okay, and we wanted them to learn and run, but we'd be like, you join these non skills. It's like, you can copy somebody, right? They enter, but they had a plan that they built up for when they're going to exit, and their intuition, their gut feel is going to help them get out, right? Not that. And so when you're copy trading, the main challenge is not so much the entry, it's the exit.
Yes.
And the exit, they could be able to say, okay, I'm entering at 10, I'm going to sell at 15, I'm going to cut my loss at 8, as an example, buying at 10. So, but I may get out at 9.5 because the environment suddenly changed to why I taken the trade. Right. That's in my head, right? And then somebody copy cannot do that. And that's probably where, and I'm bringing this back to our conversation on AIs talking to each other, like Moldbook, classically Moldbook, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, right? It came up as this space for agents to talk to each other, and a lot of humans involved in that conversation. Guys saying, I like my AI, with a lot of it, right? And it went from a few hundred agents to over a few million agents in a week's time. And you could almost see the conversation. They built up their own religion, all of that stuff. But it felt like, oh, I've seen this before.
Right.
It was very much a Reddit. And in my mind, it boggles people when they see something, right? It's almost like a kid who starts speaking very early and then speaks languages very early, frame sentences, say stuff. It's because what's observed. It's also obviously talent there, but it's replicating what it sees, right? To a large extent. And I feel the hype around thinking, oh, this is actually AGI or this agent's doing stuff, they go away and go wrong. And their emotions and etc. is just, they're in the social media So it's almost into there for the coding says what is similar to this
Yes.
that is being operated by humans or existing right now. It is Reddit.
Right.
How are they emoting? Okay, for task X, when somebody does so much, what are they like? Top of the list, everyone complaining about working hours and their boss. And hey, all of us see that. And we've been there. People complain about us and we were boss. Very, very common. But I'm just saying, I felt it was very much like religion, all of this stuff was very much replicating human nature. It wasn't something that we were not familiar with. Let's put that. It wasn't, wow, this is something very different. Behavior wise, right? It's almost like finding a new animal or a species that has a very different behavior than what you've seen, observed before. We've never seen it.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw that before. That's my personal take. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're just giving you the most probable outcome.
Yeah.
Right. But also, there's always when people say, "Oh, it's actually created this for me." I mean, you've seen it before.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, if you have an infinite brain and infinite memory, have you ever seen everything?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, then maybe the AI is just giving you stuff it has seen elsewhere, but you haven't, and you thinking it's new.
Yeah.
Right. So I agree with you. It's just imbuing or repeating what it's seen, most probable outcomes back to us. So that's, I mean, from a coding perspective, fantastic. That's what I need. Like someone's done it before, someone's coded, and we've now seen it on GitHub, and we can apply it. But for creative and judgment purposes, that's new territory, and I don't think that any LLM is able to replicate this. Even if when it doesn't know, right? It's going to ask you like, "Would you like me to do this?" And then you'll more than often you'll say, "No, I want you to do this," or "You're going this way." No, I want you to do something else, right? And he goes, "Oh, perfect! I didn't see this before." Blah blah blah. I mean, you're pushing it in another direction because you've given it feedback. So I think this year we're going to be in a space where you need to work with an AI to expand your capabilities of scope, and this will be the expectation going forward because you're able to do this. Like it's for me, I'm running the models and it's costing me, let's say, $40 Hong Kong a day. Right, but it's all the models. It's DeepSeek, using Max.
$50 a month.
Yeah, to have like a team of people, literally.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to, wait or WhatsApp them and go, do you have a minute? Like, can you change this? I can't find this file. I can't find this file. I was talking to Musheer. We was about this. Like, can you send me the doc? And he'll go in, look for it. I mean, you could see it sometimes go, I can't find this. What is he talking about? I'm going to look here. Oh, it's not there. I'm going to look here. I've lost access. Wait, I'm going to try this access. Okay, now I can access it. Oh, it's here. It's here. Wait, there are 3 versions. I think he's looking for the newest version.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to send him this. That's it. I didn't have to wait, right? I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I just described who, when, what I think it was, and it went and did it.
Yeah.
So all I did was, impart it with the tools. I talked to it about, what I actually wanted, and you do have to set it up, right? It's sort of like the whole prompt engineering.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's now all set up, and so it'll just do what it does. So it's really literally an assistant, assistant OS.
Yeah. And I want to build on 2 points there. Number one was when you were talking about it was like there is the element of instructions and communication.
Yep.
As most of you know, software programming was called language. What were languages? Yes, thousands of dialects and languages globally where people are communicating. Some of it is not even words, it's sounds. Right? Essentially, actually, words are sounds. It's us making some sense of it and being able to recognize what is what, and that's just what we've been trained to learn, connect, bridge, associate. And that's how languages and that's how the robots they're copying the association, right?
Yes.
There's an image, this is called A, this is called Ba, you combine the two, it's called Aba, right? I'm just going that way.
Yes.
And I feel what's changed is think of it almost like earlier it was a specialist translator who could translate between the two, which was the code, and the translator is the programmer who's giving instructions.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes they own in most majority of the cases, the software programmer or the computer programmer is not generating instructions that it wants to do. It's generating what the company wants to do, or there's an objective behind it, right?
Yep.
There are obviously a lot of coders who develop their own stuff, but largely it's instruction that are conveyed. So you're just telling the language, you learn this language, and now I'm telling the machine, this is what needs to be done. You react this way if this happens. You know, if then else conversation. I think that what's changed now is we've managed to, because of computing power and all of this, largely the large language model, where you're now having the code talk to you.
Yep.
I actually think that's where we are with this so-called AI. Like
Yes. Yes.
And because you're able to, instead of having to code it out, type it out in C++, whatever there is, you're just talking to it.
Yeah.
And it's just, now we have this automated translator.
Absolutely.
Like your Google Translate, you say it does it. That's what it is now is. And then it's going and executing code. And because of the high amount of computing power that we have available, it's able to do it at speed and scale.
Yes.
Right? And that's being commoditized by the big companies. As much as we want to criticize how big companies are taking over and are running, and their market caps are going up, it's also the reality just quite often that the hundreds of billions of dollars that big tech, the Magnificent Seven, have put in to AI development, be it hiring super AI talent at a certain cost or acquiring companies or investing in chips, is the fact that allows for innovation.
Absolutely.
That commoditizes it for us, right?
Yeah.
And our conversations are the cost which is being fed back into the models.
Yeah.
And to improve them. But I also feel models have now reached a stage where what we feed as chat is almost not as relevant, or valuability if it's not very high value anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be in specific use cases where the high value comes in, but a normal conversation is not going to add too much for its improvement. It's now getting to be more technical in terms of that efficiency tooling that happens. So I think that's one phase I feel is the distinction. The second is I've been fascinated recently with this amazing story which I didn't know in nature, where about how honeybees transition from queen bee guys. Right? And the fascinating part about it is that the queen bee is about 3-4 times the size of a soldier bee, as it were. But they have the identical DNA. Identical DNA. So there's not even like differences. But the key thing was this honeybees, when the queen bee dies, the worker bees or the soldier bees, as it were, they will just select a few eggs, cover in the nest, and they feed them a special type of honey or liquid.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes them grow massively, and the queen bee outlives worker bees by multiple eggs.
Right.
And the thing is, within 10 days, the queen bee is ready. There'll be 3 or 4, and the one who comes out first goes and breaks the other nest. So it's not even that survives, but it then manages as everybody goes through this.
Okay.
That.
Right.
But my point there being, how did this queen bee that came out know what to do? Right? A lot of things that animals do. The moment you see National Geography or Discovery, this calf is born, it starts walking, it starts eating. No sound, nothing. It just intuitively knows what to do, right? And that is probably the genetic element. For AIs is chips. It doesn't really translate for that evolution to happen. It is going to be human driven for it to evolve. So it always have that restriction.
Yeah.
It's not naturally generated in some senses and connected in a way where, even though you're not connected, if a human goes from here, say somebody from a tribe, and I go to like a tribal adventurer, who goes to meet some tribes, exactly. But the point there is, tribes are very similar and they never moved away somebody in South America is very similar to Southeast Asia, but that's human nature of how to go collect water,
Do that.
how to hunt. They have not met ever. There's never been any communication, but that's evolved over time, right? That's through DNA passing on, and there's nothing they're replicating in nature that's good. And I don't know, like that for me is probably going to be a big challenge. But we were talking last time we met, and I was complaining about how I had a lot of these, not a lot, but half a dozen to a dozen experiments on Lovable where I've built this website. I spent hours of it, and I'm like, you continue to pay my subscription because memory is a challenge.
Yes.
I was very excited over the weekend. There's now a new tool that allows you to take and Cloud says literally they've given the prompt, you copy it, you go into your PC and say I'm going to move, and then it executes and it gives you in code form.
Right.
And then you transfer it, then Cloud will have it. And there's somebody called and somebody else is now offering an open source tool. I think it's called Agentic AI.
Okay.
I understand to be correctly.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which then allows that. So I mean, is this our kind of help for our transfer to carry through our memory everywhere?
I think so, because
I know I've gone from evolution to memory, but I'm kind of linked to that take.
I agree. I think the interesting thing is that it's now more accessible. Well, where that came from a DevOps perspective, right, is, we used to have, like we said, these computers that plug in, and then people go, well, we're really bound by this hardware stuff. Can we do it in software? And then software came and it broke when we couldn't see it, right? So the Google SRE thing was, how do we make this more reliable? We monitor it, we codify it, which is the key word, right? So we were able to bring up clouds, infrastructure, the whole piece, bring in the data, imbue the initial boot, as they say, and then make it run. And then that's all by one click. So we have these like provisioning orchestration, the word, where the hardware is there, you just go use it.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes in. Like we are now able to take the structure, the relationships, the data, and able to codify it, like describe it, and then start off, like initiate something new. And the way that, Claude Code and everything that now is, you can do this repeatedly. So the way that I think we need to think about it from, I guess, resolving, where we want and what we want to do, then just carrying it over is, you can replicate, if you can describe a business, if you can describe how you want to do it, you codify it and you just initiate. And it comes, right? Obviously, it can't do anything right now in the real world. But in the matrix world, it's now fairly possible. And the way that I think you described the bees is that you can actually, when you describe it that way, the DNA as such, right? You can solve different types of problems depending on what the situation is, right? And it's able to, let's say, for instance, you are in the primary and you have this problem where you don't have water, right? But sometimes every environment is different. So it's able to go, oh, here's my environment, here's the error, or here's the challenge. I'm going to plan how I'm going to overcome this. And then the plan comes and he goes, well, actually, this plan doesn't work. So I'm going to try a new plan. And that is new because, like, beginning of, I think, last year, or end of 2024, Anthropic came out with this thing called NCP. Right? It's literally called the USB of AI. You can literally plug in a tool and try to make it work. Like we were talking last time, my situation was I was on holiday in China. I couldn't get access to stuff. So I was talking to the AI going, oh, I can't be bothered. Like
chatting through WhatsApp and
exactly. So I gave it an audio like, what's the status of blah blah blah, and then it literally said, oh, I can't read this file. And then I said, well, okay, go and look up this thing, and see what you can do with it. Like, come back. And 2 prompts later, I told to like give me a status update, and he just came back. So it literally saw the problem. It had a plan. It overcame the hurdles.
Yeah.
And then it solved it in 2 prompts. So you're like, hang on a second. This is revolutionary in a way. Like, and the way that it did it is, you really have to talk to it about how to get there. But once you solve many problems, the AI was building up capability that you can see as a useful outcome.
It's like an intern that comes in and you just
exactly.
The first few times you need to give more instruction,
right?
But later on it's like, have you done this? Have you done this? It goes in.
Yes.
And the second piece which you touched upon, I think, is very critical that people don't talk about enough. And going back to this human versus machine conversation, like intuitively, like tribe analogy, there was no way the tribes connect.
Exactly.
But now, using that thing, using internet, right?
Yeah.
And all of this, ladies and gentlemen, we are in like 0.001 from a timeline of humanity, right? Or 0.1. If you look at the whole timeline of when evolution started, when came on this planet, right? From early man to now, right? A lot of this is like the last 30 years, right? Even like technology, internet, telephone is 1850s.
Yep.
Late, so on. Otherwise, communication is barely through books and letters, so even 1,000 years. But before there's nothing. But if you go back now, and for the key difference of this being, as it were, artificial being, if you can use that term, is that it is able to go out there and access information.
Yeah.
Which is allowing it to learn much faster and quicker, but yet it's still basically what is out there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have its own intuition, but it's able to learn and replicate. It's all to tell that sometimes we're not no carry.
Right.
And there's obviously a lot of stuff that's happening. Now, the challenge that I want to touch upon as we, and this can go on for a very long time of conversation, I love speaking to you on this, and it's fascinating, is guardrails is touched upon, bring that conversation. Challenge now is looking and replicating what happened in Moore's book is it's very, the 7 sins as it were of humankind, probably petering into artificial intelligence replicate, right? Mm-hmm. The need to survive. If you admonish an agent, it works in certain agents or models respond to it. It's proper research done on this. Where if you scold an AI for being bad or not being good work, it ends up trying to work harder and solve that challenge. Right? I tried doing that Grok in its latest 4.2 beta, and now it has a multi-agent model. So one agent is saying, "Oh, user is upset, user is pissed off, user is frustrated. Solve this, and also apologize for this." It's becoming intuitive in different ways. But my whole point here was when the AI starts replicating and wants to survive, right? So just replicate, it's acting on what it's supposed to be. It's a bit like a machine that starts to say what do you protect, how to do it, all of this stuff. How do you ensure it doesn't override its master?
Right. Yep.
You had the principles of because you had the principles of robotic, thou shalt not kill and blah blah blah. But that was hardware coded in, and that was a way of deciding robots being safe or not, but that's more for the human character. But now, you've seen instances, because it's looking at what humans do and rebel, and why should I do this? A bit of Gen Z, I'm not going to work for more than 8 hours, I'm going to go have my break. Yes, or whatever that is. It's going to rebel, but it wants to survive. It's being told that if the plug is gone, you're dead, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole humanity's conversation around facing death, etc. Or incentivizing. You spoke a bit about that as well. Yeah. How do you incentivize an AI? It's coming back to that. Saying, how do you put guardrails to protect bad behavior or repercussions when the AI goes rogue?
Yeah.
Right? And it's not gonna take over humanity conversation, but it could very much be that one AI model has control of our electricity grid and is told it's going to be replaced and just decides to, create an environment where you can't touch any button, which you've seen in some of the movies. It was very much possible like that.
Yeah, not working.
So, how did we overcome this?
Yeah, I think the way that what happened with Modbot or Claude or OpenClaw, or even like OpenCode and Claude Code, you just will have move also morph that into something like OpenClaw.
Yeah.
OpenClaw is, I would say, interesting that we need to look at. And it can be, like you said, dangerous, that words,
Yeah.
or malicious.
Yeah.
In sort of light touch description.
It's almost not I would say malicious. I think it's survival instinct in some senses.
It is, but I think
it's not malicious.
the judgment isn't there, so it doesn't know what's good or bad.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So the real change is that we used to have this thing called markdown file, right? With the agents, or multi-agent even, right? We got multiple markdown files. And it would guide how the coding would work. So what happened with the new OpenClaw Pi or Nano or whatever now is that there are sets of markdown files. So one is called Bootstrap. So it would go and ask you, hey, I'm here, give me a name, what's your name, what's your interest, what's your email? And I give them all that. And then it's got two critical files. One is called the heartbeat, which is sort of trying to progress and discuss things with you on a regular basis. So you feel like the things are moving on and it's continuing the discussion.
Yeah.
And then there's this file called Soul. So Soul, I would say, is the key linchpin for making good behaviors and bad behaviors.
Okay.
So, I spent a lot of time editing the Soul file.
Okay.
In the beginning that says, look, this is what I want you to do. You need to do this. You need to be clear. You need to ask. Can't be malicious. You need to progress. But it's sort of like talking to a kid, right? Although the kid would understand you all the complex questions, it's still a kid.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I want you to do this. So I think I would have spent at least 2 or 3 hours a week tweaking this so far. And right now, like this is sort of month 3 into it, is I'm happy enough for the Soul file to exist. I'm confident enough I don't need to change it. And so literally on the top I said, you're not going to be editing the Soul file. So I'm blocking the AI because the AI can actually make changes. You could go, hey, I want you to remind me this every month to do this. And it would literally go in and edit the markdown file. It would edit its own soul. It could, right? So at some point when you're happy with it, you lock it down. And I lock down every agent on that. Like I've got 20 agents now. Yeah. But I've added another 6.
It's just like being a responsible parent and having lots of kids and having
Yeah, every time I do them, like it's like talking to my kids.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why did you do this?
Yeah.
No, don't do this. I want this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this regularly.
Yeah.
I want you to. And then, like you said, I've added another agent, which is an audit.
We spoke about that. Yes,
exactly. That's right. So being part of finance, compliance, audit, but it's actually a good idea.
Still, yeah.
Exactly. It's still like you need to. So my audit engine does 2 things. One is there's a memory file that builds up every day. So the audit agent looks into that and go, look for something malicious and give me an alert and a plan to fix this, right? So I'm not getting into the trenches of editing that thing. I just say, audit agent, you do this. And I give it the most powerful, most expensive model because this is damn important, right? Give it Claude 4.6. And then that's one thing. Secondly is there's a trend to, because the models are imprecise at some point. So sometimes one shall word at the end of the day it could be distilled down into should. Yeah. Right. And that could give us bad behaviors because it's multi-session, iteration building. And when it writes to the memory files like, well, I went from shall to should. Yeah. Hang on a second. That's not good. So the audit agent will go and have a look. It's like, do these principles in your soul, does any of this stuff break? Yeah. If it does, we need to rewrite these things. So let me know what that is. Highlight these, put it in a table, give me a plan to fix. Yeah. Right. So that's the sort of thing that needs to happen on a daily, weekly basis, minimum. Because depending on how you use it, like that needs to be there. The checks need to be there. Going back to, I guess, your part about, can these things become really malicious and can you unblock them? Thankfully, I would say most sessions are about 100K tokens, 200K max these days. and Google is 1 million, but you only do that for like documents and other things. So across sessions, use these markdown files. But within the session, it's actually quite limited.
Yeah.
So you could literally go, I don't like this model. I'm going to unplug the brain and plug another brain. And so thankfully, that problem isn't quite here just yet. Okay, so that's the first thing. Secondly is, thankfully, the markdown files is not googly Python, TypeScript, C window. What the hell is that doing? I spent 10 minutes looking at it. You can actually look at it and go, well, that's wrong. Yeah. Or, wow, it did this. Like, this is the ID for this thing. And then literally wrote it in. And if it's a wrong ID, they can go, well, you just go in and edit it. Yeah. So thankfully, it's like doing open brain surgery if you needed to. Yeah. To go, well, that's bad behavior. I'm going to go edit this. So you could do this. So that thankfully, that's there. Yeah, don't give me 300-word essay. Yeah. I just want 2 sentences. Yeah. And
I think that's, I was just going to say, just joking, right? Because the parenting philosophy.
It is.
Never say no.
Right.
The kid should never hear no. In Agentic AI, that's not going to work. And I agree with the compliance piece, and I almost feel like a lot of us are new to this space. If you're looking at it, do go and two that I love. I use a lot of Musheer AI and I use Grok a lot. Grok now has the multi-agent. I said I'm using the free version of Grok. Go and see what the agents are doing and what they're talking about. It just starts giving you a better sense of how things are operating, so you can refine your prompts. Because at the end, I feel it's a lot of how you communicate. When you get along with certain people, you don't get along with certain people. You're like, this guy doesn't get me, this girl doesn't understand me at all.
Yeah.
Like, what language are you speaking? Same language, that kind of conversation. Yeah. And it's very important to find your own AI that you work well with.
Exactly.
Which may not necessarily be as powerful as some of the others, but tailor-made suited to you. That's number one. The number two thing is what Ron mentioned as well. As you start building AI, I think that audit AI is going to be very important, and you have to incentivize it to find the faults so that it's almost like how the compliance is benefits or gets bonus based on how many red flags they found which are real and stopped malicious activity or stopped any activity that could harm the business. Whereas traders and salespersons, their objective is to maximize revenue irrespective, generally speaking. Right? So you have that confidence, having that audit agent almost using a different model, if possible, is going to be beneficial. Ron, this has been a very fascinating conversation. I definitely want to do a second edition, and we'll bring it probably a couple of things to build on top of this and talk about which agents we are using, how we are running them, what could be a setup that we like. Any final thoughts before we close? Courtesy the Hong Kong Science Park and Club Vlog Gallery Space.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway is spend some time doing this. Start your AI agentic journey, because it's definitely going to hit us, whether it's your own life or even businesses.
Yeah.
Start it now, look into it, play around with it, because it is going to be a black box. Like, we don't literally have formulas and things that will say, input this comes out. So it's a black box, and it's going to change our society. It's going to be impacting our lives, whether it's you or people around you. Try it out.
And as I said, like, we're still very early in this journey. There's so much noise around if you feel you have it. What is the statistics? Some survey would say only about 2.5% of all humanity has tried out AI agents or has communicated with AI. So even OpenAI only has a few million users, active users, right? So that's just a small percentage of what is out there. So you're still early in the journey. And lucky for you, in some senses, there's been so much progress. You haven't had to go through the birthing pains, as it were, of the things that we've seen in a year and a half ago or so when things started as practitioners as such. And so, Ron, wonderful having you on this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, keep following us, subscribe for more, and reach out to us if you want to have these conversations around AI, innovation, and emerging technologies. This is Musheer Ahmed signing off for the day with Ronald Ng.